Yeah. Oh, wait, actually. Bilal.
Hey
Bilal El
Kevin,
Alamy. How you doing?
Kevin Merhabi. I'm great, thanks. How are you doing?
Wonderful.
From
I'm
one side
great.
of the planet to the other.
Yeah. You're in Paris now. I'm in
Yeah,
Los Angeles. But actually, the
9
first
a.m.
episode of the
evening.
go ahead.
It's 9 it's 9 a, it's 9 p.m. evening.
In Paris. So thank you
Yeah,
for the late night. But you are up at all hours. I don't know sometimes when you sleep.
almost.
It's not a very yeah. But you do go around the world for what you do. You're in Dubai and Paris and all that. And you're joining us now for the first TezCast in 2 years. I did
Wow,
5 episodes.
welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, it seemed about time. We did 5 episodes. I did 5 episodes. Most of those were interviews, and yeah, it's like okay, I have way too much work to do. Like actually, like doing projects in Tezos besides media and stuff. So I was just like, okay, I don't have time to, and especially in those days, I think I took more attention towards editing and curating the podcast because I was more self-conscious then. It doesn't come off that way. It's still like this. You spent a long time on these, but it's like, all right, I just don't have time for like the mental wherewithal for it. But the time has come. I've been doing spaces and all that. Many of them you've joined me on, Clubhouse and all those things. So, figured let's bring TezCast back. I think there's a need.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a good idea. I myself also want to create content, and I will be very soon starting my own video podcast called Community Effect.
Community effect.
Yeah,
That's really good. That's
thanks.
like great for crypto and
Yeah,
like
it's like a
decentralized
mix of
governance.
network effect and community lead or focus
Yeah,
approach.
yeah. What brought you into Tezos originally?
What brought me into Tezos? Oh, Adrian Zera brought me into Tezos. So I met Adrian Zera at some point, like 4 years ago, and he told me about Tezos. It was just before he joined Nomadic Lab, and I was having some scalability issues with Ethereum, and I explored Tezos, and it was a kind of a nice environment because it's made up of a lot of researchers, and I myself did some research in statistical physics, so it's in an environment that I like. People, they're kind of serious and very professional, and they trust each other with their work, and that was the most important thing for me in the community.
Yeah, I think it does come down to community in the end. And the way I say it's that like the on-chain governance, the ability to have like a true decentralized governance within Tezos that runs the thing, not in lip service, but in actuality. Like that's what brought me in. And it's everything else, technology wise, those things can be iterated. Those things can be corrected, improved, advanced, and they have to. I mean, technology advances over time. You could have the best blockchain, you could have the best technology in the world, but you have to evolve it over as time goes on because demands change, needs change, new
Yeah,
ideas.
evolve it, drive the roadmap is very important. We were just talking just before about the AMA with Archer, and he was talking about optimistic rollups, and those are important topics and very important directions for the whole community to take together to improve how the blockchain we share can be improved for all of us at the same time.
Exactly. And we've had, I think, just recapping the last, I think, 2 years is also, well, we don't have time to recap everything, but some of the more interesting things that have come about in community-wise, really the participation of the Baker Network in governance, in ideas, and that's been percolating so much. We have, much more people get involved.
I remember at least 2 upgrades, where the one where we introduced liquidity baking, and the second one, which was it maybe when we introduced tender bake as the consensus algorithm. It's good. It created a lot of discussion among the community. Those are sane discussions, even if sometimes we don't agree with each other. But the most important thing is that we show that the governance model went through again and again, and so even so we don't agree, we accept the outcome as a whole. So yeah, that's great. That's the most important thing. What I see from kind of the awakening of mainstream people and corporates, they tend to go where the governance is sane, and it's a real argument for Tezos on that matter.
Yeah, and I spoke at this panel a few months back in September, I believe it was. Yeah, with it was at the Vertalo Digital Assets Conference in Austin, and the focus there was security tokens, which is not, you have experience with that with EquiSafe, but it's not something that I've particularly been a part of. I mean, I do these stuff, as you do as well, but there was a panel question that was asked that I participated in, and I thought it was a really good, simple question that distilled it down, the advantages of Tezos for things like this, whatever it is most of us are building these days. Like, what is the best blockchain for digital assets, for issuing digital assets? That it's such a key question because it covers tokens.
For each of the use cases, you need key elements on which you will base your decision. If you want to deal with securities, it depends which types of use case. If you're dealing with institutionals and huge amounts, kind of the gas fee are not a requisite. But if you're dealing with a retail use case, and that implies a lot of participants, obviously it becomes kind of a limit if you don't take into consideration the scalability of the blockchain, and thus the gas fee, because the scalability is kind of correlated to the gas fee. And so Tezos could be a good choice, and that's also why at Dogami we've chosen Tezos, because the gas fee are very low, and it opened the door for wider mass market use cases adoption, without having the reluctancy of seeing huge gas fee just sabotaging the user experience. So again, yeah, each time you need to define what are the key elements on which you need to base your decision, and kind of which technology take the case for those requirements. But yeah, Tezos is also a blockchain that is audited when you start working in B2B environments with corporates, whether it is in the financial industry or not. It's kind of important for them to have a foundation that is audited. And I don't know much of actually, for Tezos is the only blockchain I know that is audited by that has its foundation audited. Maybe Kevin, some others, but that's kind of very important for corporates to know how the money is spent for all those money laundering requirements, etc. Another thing in the financial industry, you also have all those how can I say, extraterritorial rules, for example, between the US and some of the country in the Middle East, where obviously you don't want North Korea to validate a financial transaction for Goldman Sachs. So then, in terms of architecture, it's important to know what is the flow of your transaction to be certified in the ledger. And the advantage also of Tezos is that you can choose your backer, which validates your transactions. Could be yourself, could be someone you know within your country, could be a regulated entity, and that's mostly different in terms of validation mechanism that you can find on any other blockchain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's also the role of hard forks, and what the consequence of that, which is, it's something I think for, well, most digital assets that most people have, well, most digital assets that have been issued and most digital assets that have been used by people have been art NFTs. And I think it's a good model to start examining other types of digital assets, be they to
Of course.
Sure.
The first use cases in Web3 were more centered around financiarization of stuff.
As most things are.
Yes, but not everybody is attracted or understand understand the flows of this world. Whereas on NFTs, it recalls to a more consumer good aspect, a collectible aspect, and everybody has collected something in their life. Could be anything. So I think people understood more the use case, or a wider audience felt connected to those use cases.
Right. I mean, Web 2, even, like, it started with, like digital content or creative content. Well, not started with, but right about there at the beginning. I mean, we saw things like YouTube pop up, and variants on that theme, in which decentralized content really, like, there's a lot of content that can be created by individuals. So the production is not, there's no barrier really there. I mean, because people are always willing to make stuff. You can find niche audiences that would be interested in those things, or mass audiences that are interested in those things. Whether it's a small but very loyal YouTube following or a very large one, just like with NFT artists on Object, you can find your loyal crew, or maybe you're very, you're kind of just appealing to everybody. But like, I think that's what really gets the word out, and then people start associating other ideas, just like they associated other ideas of Web 2 with using that frame of reference, something they knew and were able to consume very easily. But we saw, I think, with CryptoPunks, which was not a blockchain hard fork, and it wasn't even a new contract fork, but it was a reissued version. I mean, are you familiar with this? Did you hear what happened with the version 1 and version 2 of CryptoPunks?
No.
Yeah.
Can you remind me?
So I hope I get the facts right. This is how I put it together. So there was a version 1 contract, and back that they had used when CryptoPunks started, but then there was a move towards a second contract, a V2 contract, which was I forget why they did that, but they found it important to do that. Those behind CryptoPunks, and the CryptoPunks that had been on OpenSea for all this time, the CryptoPunks that got really popular and were well appreciated and celebrated throughout the community, that all these people own and high profile names own and everything, and spent all this money on. That was the V2, and OpenSea had been blocking the V1 contract for CryptoPunks until this other marketplace decided to actually to use that V1 contract, and people were to bring that up, or to represent both. And at that point, people, I think, were pestering OpenSea to start facilitating that. It's like, how can you block this contract? It's used in the ecosystem. So they had to enable it too, which sent it was very problematic for that ecosystem to digest two NFTs, both representing effectively the same one, but which one is more authentic? And then there was the debate that happened and this was a great debate that I was watching.
That's a big debate. There's no good question. There's no good answer, because
that's the real one. They both are.
I don't know. You need to, no, they're not. I mean, technically, it's supposed to be the second, but the question is, did Larva Labs, the company behind CryptoPunks, was transparent enough to so that people at least can get the chance to understand. So to understand, is it their fault or the people's fault who basically were goats and followed kind of a trend on the wrong contract? I mean,
Sure.
for testing matters, it is often happens that we deploy multiple contracts. We try to hide them, but sometimes for the bakers, since they're not that much dApps running on Tezos, when there is a new thing that is deployed, they notice it and they can kind of share it in their community and the word spreads. So that's the public blockchain
Right.
aspects and defaults. But
Yeah, I mean, with the I mean, when I mean they both are, it's more like there's an argument there had been and there are still arguments on both sides. And of course people are biased towards what they own, if they own a V1 or a V2. But the V1 is, well, look, this is, if you're talking about provenance, which is the whole essence of all this stuff, well, this is where it began. The V1s are the authentic ones. Doesn't matter what you want to say about the V2s. Then the V2 people are like, well, wait a minute, no. What made this whole thing popular, what made this big, like the ones that the whole community effectively, like the collective consciousness agrees are the CryptoPunks that we all know, love, and value, it's the V2. So, I mean, and it's difficult, and that's the problem with hard forks, because you could, with a blockchain, it's the same thing. It was the same debate of Ethereum Classic, of originally the Bitcoin Cash, in which they were both vying to be the main chain, and this will continue to happen. And Cardano itself began as a massive hard fork of Ethereum, and with Tezos, we don't have hard forks, not because there's something necessarily preventing it. It's the fact that the way in which Tezos is governed, it renders the need for hard forks unnecessary, because we decide things in this democratized fashion, through this Baker network, through people discussing and participating in this commonwealth process. It's a true digital commonwealth. That's what brought me into Tezos, because more was like the answer to that as a problem. I was identifying those problems. And it's like, this is going to be like a powder keg if we don't solve this issue with assets splitting and duplicating effectively every time there's a hard fork. Or how like, if it's, take security tokens, right? A piece of real estate, you have a plot of land, you tokenize that real estate, right? That plot of land, it sells on the markets, and then the blockchain is a hard fork. Well, you could have two NFTs at that point, or you would have two NFTs representing that
true
land. How is that? How you litigate it? Yeah.
That was one of the reason the arguments I was giving on my first company, EquiSafe.
Exactly. So your background, your Tezos background, the first thing you did was EquiSafe.
The first thing I did was EquiSafe, which is B2B software that is used by investment funds to manage their investors. We basically use Tezos Ledger to handle accounting of securities of companies, and we have a suite of services that are built on top of this investors tracking, such as governance and financial reporting and stuff like that. But yeah, that was like a fintech, regulated, and I was thriving to have more impact in Web3, in the Web3 ecosystem. And so I started Dogami with three co-founders, and basically the idea for me was to show that we could build a mass market app, which was here a game on the blockchain, and specifically Tezos, because I've been a member of the Tezos community for almost 4 years now. I've participated in many projects. Another one is called SmartLink, which is this Uniswap-like on Tezos. So it's a decentralized exchange, which probably has the most active users on Tezos. And try to act as a catalyst to foster the ecosystem as we know it.
Right. And so subsequent to that, I mean, you founded Pirates Labs, which umbrellas many of the other activities you do. And SmartLink is one of those. That's the that's the biggest exchange now. I think it's fair to say, it's safe to say that it's has the most for TVL and for users. And just the technology, it's continually, it's
We'll be very
it's lovely
soon
to look at it.
releasing the V2 of the DEX, which will have stablecoin pairs, and so people will be able to provide liquidity on the safest DeFi investment we know, which is like stablecoin pairs.
Right. And the DEX is Vortex, so Vortex.network. And Ben Constantly, CEO of that. And I would say, because I'm a DeFi founder in the space, with USD Tez and all that stuff. But yet Ben Constantly, I mean, that is kind of that I would say that is like an ideal peer to have in the ecosystem. I mean, I don't know of anyone who's just
really
so
good.
professional. And he's just so, like, he knows how to operate and how to adapt over time. He's able to take data, listen to it, discuss it with the right people, and then take action. It sounds so simple, right? But I think every ecosystem, I mean, it's a very competitive space, but a lot is left to be desired on that front. And Ben, I think he models it so well. Yeah,
he's very thorough in his work, and has a good vision of how we can reach out to people.
Yeah. And full disclosure, I am a SmartLink advisor, but that's really as a response. Like I've been asked to advise many things, but I almost always turn it down. But with SmartLink and Vortex, it was okay. Yes, yeah, this is right. And because you're there too, of course.
Thanks. But we'll try to syndicate with the right people to build the right product. And it was fun working with Ben, and we're very happy that you joined the adventure.
Right. Yeah. And Vortex is the exchange. It's the AMM. SmartLink is the escrow product. That's the title, or that's how the nomenclature is going. Sort of right now. And leading to that, of course, I think a lot of people are listening for Dogami. Dogami has become probably the most successful project in asset project in Tezos history. I mean, this is something that any way you look at it,
finally.
And even when people ask, like, what is it, it's like we need new terms to describe these things, because I think some people are like, oh, is it a PFP? No, it's not what it is. It's like, oh, so I can't. You can use like
what we've seen with the different Web3 cycles is that the use case kept on complexifying themselves. So it's not just a PFP, but it's also a PFP. The idea is to have your profile picture, but it's a 3D profile picture, so it can become your avatar. And cherry on the cake, you can access a fun game with these avatars, and then a whole new types of perks that we will introduce in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's the smallest part of it is the idea that you could use it as a profile picture. I mean, we're talking about an application. These are characters in a game, and what a game, because this incorporates so many things that I think the gaming industry, the NFT sector, we've all kind of been moving towards in terms of AR, augmented reality. And the ability to interface with our world, with a virtual world on top of it, and to start at something that's already so ingrained and domesticated for the general populace. Dogs, a pet to have and to live in your house, and you can walk and can do all the things a dog can do, but it's a virtual dog, and to have a scarce supply of that, breeding as a function associated with it as well. Much more humane breeding because it's virtual and not, all the skeezy practices that we know in the world today. So helping the world out in that regard. And there are big players involved in this. You have a Ubisoft as a partner, Animoca Brands,
and
of course,
and an investor.
Draper Goren Home.
The idea when we built the project it was, like I said, to build a mass market product. to build a mass market product, we had to reach out to as many audiences in as many regions of the world as possible. And so to do that, we have built an advisory board built from investors and entrepreneurs from everywhere in the world, but most importantly, in various types of industries. Obviously, first from gaming, we brought in Ubisoft. They're bringing their expertise. We're exchanging in a lot of best practices, specifically building on Tezos, because they've started their platform Quartz, which is this NFT marketplace for NFTs for their game. And they're collaborating in various other projects to try to use their licenses and do cross marketing with other projects. So we exchange a lot of best practices. We've also attracted people from the crypto gaming community, people like Animoca, like Sébastien Borger from the Sandbox, which bring their network and their experience within this aspect of the space. And finally, we also brought in some traditional VCs and actors that are more familiar with growth and internationalizations of an ambitious company. Because Dogami is not just a game. We want to build a strong IP, and build a strong IP is do a whole lot of things connected to this universe that we describe as the petaverse in the game, and this includes comic books, TV shows, merchandising, and those are kind of stuff we want to do to spread the word even more. And you mentioned the dogs. Yeah, we choose dogs because it's well, for two reasons. One, business reasons. There is a lot of breeds which allow us to do a lot of drops and attractive and have a lot of variety in which we can build those avatars for the game. Right. But the other reason is that it's a very sticky community, and it allowed us to also build some pedagogic aspects in the game. And I like to say our game is like a play to earn, but it's also a learn to earn, because we've built it with 2 dog experts, and so depending on the dogs you will have, your experience will be different, and it will be linked to the character of your specific breed, and all the tasks that you will have to do during the game, they are correlated to what you're supposed to do to get a puppy, an adult.
Right. And so how it worked, the distribution of it, well, the initial launch, you had, so it was 10 breeds initially?
Yeah, we've done 10 breeds in the first drop. And yesterday we've announced the second drop, which is going to be end of May. And we're going to add 5 new breeds out of it. And for each breed, we are issuing 800 different NFTs that are all unique in their characteristics.
So 800. So we had 8,000 before.
Yeah.
And then 800. So 800 additional
per breed. And we're going to do 5 more breeds end of May.
5 more. Okay. So 800 total, or 800 per?
No, it's 800 per breed.
Okay. That was the thing. So 800 per breed, 5 new breeds. So
4,200.
4,200 added to the 8,000 you already have. So 12,200 Dogami.
Exactly.
Okay. Doga. And you have the Doga coin, and that's traded on dexes. I think it has the most TVL of any non-Tez coin on Vortex now. And I think it's between that and USD Tez. So we're kind of getting neck and neck there. I think they support each other. And you're also on a centralized exchange as well, so people can have the convenience. It's gate.io.
Yeah.
So that's been doing well. So and that you're using it as a currency now. I think you had some merch that people could use their Doga tokens to buy. People who had Dogami dogs in their wallets, they get airdropped, or they have been airdropped Doga tokens. So that's been a very good, rewarding experience that people have been accumulating. I think the real use of that is yet to come. I mean, we're just at the infancy of all this stuff. And there's also Doga bones, or Doga bones. You have a Doga bone, right? So you have the Doga bones, and that came out even before Dogami dogs came out. So that was actually the first product that was actually launched. 8,000 of those
airdropped.
And 8,000 of but traded also on secondary markets and everything, and they're still
it reached like a 50 Tezos all-time high, I think. It was airdropped for free.
Yeah. So the initial airdrop, who were they airdropped to initially? Because that was before the whitelist was.
They were airdropped. Well, you had to complete a game, and I think you had like 30,000 people who completed the game, and only 8,000 people got airdropped to Dogabone.
Okay. Yeah. That was the most competitive whitelist, the Dogami whitelist, of anything we've had in Tezos. It was the kind of thing where I think people thought I had some special ability to somehow get them. It's like to get them on the whitelist. It's like, no, I had to get my own place on the whitelist, just like you. And so people were constantly asking me for. It's just like, I don't, just go to the Discord. It's all in they have a whitelist channel. Like, they couldn't make it any clearer. But yeah, and then now now they have a second shot at this with how do you get on the second whitelist for?
Well, we just opened it, so there will be, just like last time, a lot of quest and mini games that will be opened, and depending on the leaderboard, people will get whitelisted. And that's it. And maybe if you do another podcast with one of the Dogami people, they will offer some whitelist spots to your listeners.
Yeah, we did a Spaces a while back, and you and I, and then this is right at the beginning of the Dogami launch, and then we were saying, hey, maybe we can do a whitelist giveaway here in the Spaces. But I made sure we didn't know how we were going to do it, so it's like, if Spaces allows us to see the people who are in the Spaces chat, and we could let them maybe vote or do something with the emojis, like we could give something away. And I said,
I remember.
I
think we
this
messed
is all
up.
contingent. This is, by the way, we're going to play a game here, but this is all contingent on the fact that, or the idea that we could look at the people who are in the space, and but we weren't really sure if we could. Turns out we couldn't. So it's a good thing we had that disclaimer.
Really. Yeah. The video capture that you sent me was not handy to know who were the winners.
Yeah, I tried screenshotting a little bit, but it wasn't. It was so many people were in there. It wasn't going to be fair. Yeah. So, well, I guess that's a good thing that they're good with our privacy. That if you just attend a Twitter space, that they're not showing you forever that like where you were and what you were doing. It's just for the speakers. But anyway, also the Sandbox. You have a partnership with the Sandbox. So, and the Sandbox, for people who don't know. It's a how do we describe it? It's a metaverse layer. It's its own sort of world. They have their own components there, their own assets, like land. I think the most amount of owners of any project or any NFT project out there is actually Sandbox's lands, and people who own real estate in that. I think they have about 40,000 people or different owners of that, which is far beyond
that's crazy.
Anything else. Yeah.
It's amazing.
So this is a massive market. And if you're looking for what seems to be the early network effects of any of these, of real estate on any, or virtual real estate, that is, and what could be built on top of it, Sandbox should definitely be the first thing you're looking at. So there's a partnership between Dogami and Sandbox. And how will this work? Because Sandbox is built on Ethereum, and Dogami is on Tezos. So how would those two things interact?
Yeah, that's a very good question. To really understand the answer, I need to describe kind of all the different layers that need to be taken into considerations. So obviously you have first the blockchain, which is this database on which you build applications. Then you have kind of the software that is running on this database, which we call smart contracts, and then you have, for example, if we're talking about an NFT, like in the sandbox or in Dogami, you have the actual visual file and its own format that is stored on what we call IPFS, which is another database that runs on top of the blockchain layer. And when you want to go from one blockchain to the other, obviously you change the blockchain, the smart contract standard, before you can take into consideration the file compatibility. And there are things that are called bridges that basically lock an NFT in one blockchain and recreate or unlock another NFT in another blockchain. And those bridges can be used to solve the blockchain issue as well as the smart contract issue, because in one case it's escrowed, or in the other the file is copied and reminted in the other blockchain. So once you've done that, the bridge solves those two first layers. Then regarding Sandbox, the file format that is compatible in their world, in their visual world, or their social virtual world, is voxel. So the files, the format of the files is .vox. Whereas in Dogami, the NFTs are made in Unity, and so the file format output is .glb. So it's a bit technical, but it's like a PNG, but it's a metaverse ready format. And so what we're doing to allow for this interoperability is that we're creating digital twins that will be escrowed within the bridge, so that when people use the bridge, it unlocks the voxelized version of their NFT and allow them to use it in the sandbox game. And that's how we tackled interoperability. So obviously you have described a very functional approach, but in terms of user experience, it should be quite smooth, because we're working with another project called Hashi Protocol. So anyone can check it out, Hashi, HASHI protocol.com. It's a project that are building a new architecture of oracles that is based on the Tezos blockchain, but which improves the potential of interoperability with Tezos and other blockchains. And the first use case of interoperability is this bridge, which should make a seamless experience for our users to jump from one universe to the other.
That's amazing, because I mean, interoperability, it's something that I think a lot of people maybe who are starting projects or they're entering the NFT world and they don't know if they necessarily will need it or what they would need it for, but it's something maybe in the back of their mind to think like, well, would this be completely incompatible or non-interoperable with this whole other world of NFTs that's going on? Which to me, it reminds me so much of the 90s with Apple and Windows. And it was like, oh, you can't, it's like you go to the computer store to get your software, and it's like you see all the software, it's all for Windows by default. And then you'd ask someone, it's like, do you have any Mac software? And then they take you to like this back corner where they had this little, this is before the days of the Apple store. And it's like, yeah, these things don't work on your PC until we had OS X came around, and then it didn't really matter anyway. Pretty much everything worked on everything else, most everything. So I think given how high profile Dogami is, to be able to say, look, you could have your Tezos NFTs for all the advantages you look for Tezos NFTs, build it on Tezos, and you could interoperate in this universe that's built on Ethereum. And it's fine. For all intents and purposes, everything you need to do, it's fine. It works. And whether a person chooses to utilize that ultimately or not, it's just the kind of thing of like, well, it's there. There's a way it can be done. And I think that opens up a lot, and it alleviates the hesitation, whether warranted hesitation or not. It alleviates it, which I think will open up the door to so many more participants coming into the ecosystem that we'd like to see come in. Not that we're we're shallow in that department. I mean, we have
Yes. It's also highly correlated with kind of how the community works together and the leadership around it. So it's constant work and needs to be constantly focused on how to do the best thing. And I have no doubt that at some point Tezos will become more and more mainstream. I mean, it is already, but there is room for way more, and we'll have our moment.
Yes, some people wait a lifetime for a moment like this. American Idol. Yeah. By the way, I'm looking up the stats on Sandbox again. Yeah, of all it's actually 20,464 owners of Sandbox land, which is the most amount of owners. Sands, Parallel, and Townstar, which are two projects that are both less than 0.00 ETH. So of the ones that are, the floor price of Sandbox land is 1.597 ETH. So that's a pretty penny. And there are 20,464 owners. So that's the most owners for any project under those parameters. And second to that would be Mutant Date Yacht Club. So that just gives us some perspective based on stuff that people know of, like how wide that world is, how Sandbox is, even if people aren't immediately familiar with it. So the world that's being entered with Dogami is one that's very well established. So here's the thing. So with Dogami and the release schedule and all of that, there's a lot coming out in terms of creative arts. You mentioned, I think, did you mention a comic book I mean, we could imagine anything, movies and TV
so
shows.
The first thing we'll deploy is merchandising. We're gonna our hope is that each of the accessory drop that we do in collaboration with a brand, we also make them purchasable in real life through our eShop. So, for example, you get a hoodie from, I don't know, 11 mètres carrés, for example, and then you would be able to buy this Dogami 11 mètres carrés collaboration T-shirt and have your dog wear it, but also you. So the idea is both to connect the digital and the physical world, but also to have a bigger bond between your avatar and you, because you kind of own literally the same accessories in your respective universe.
Yeah, bringing it into the physical world, whereas these things all began digital. And this is we are in the alpha class of Dogamis that have been released, and the new release that's coming out, the 400 or the 5 other breeds that are being added in, 800 each. That's also part of alpha.
Yeah, we call them Alpha Series 2.
Alpha Series 2, okay.
Yeah. So so obviously Series 1 offer some advantages that you can check on our Twitter account at Dogami to learn about them exhaustively. But yeah, I mean, it's still Generation Alpha. Then what does it mean, Generation Alpha? That's the most important to understand. And those ones will be Series 2, and then the next one it will be probably another generations and probably a first series.
Okay. So I mean, there are inherent advantages of being part of Series 1, having a Series 1 Dogami, in that it's Series 1. It's the first wave that was ever released. This is the
exactly. And you'll see there will be a lot of things that are different in the new drop. So even though they are the same generation, they will be very distinguishable among them.
So there could actually be like utility differences between Series 1 and Series 2?
I would I was thinking first of visual differences, but yeah, there will be also utility differences.
Yeah, and on the visual differences, this is a common thing that uh, comes up, I think, when I speak to the more generalized NFT community on Tezos, which I'd say is the larger community within Tezos. Because people are like, this is new. I mean, I think this is new. This is not just a new thing for the NFT world on Tezos. This is a new thing for NFTs. We haven't really seen projects like this where this isn't so much like, again, like we touched, it's not a PFP that's it's so linear and static and completely misses the point of what this is. Whereas not to like any put down on PFPs at all. I own many of them. I collect many PFPs.
It's not,
But
it's not just a game.
Yeah, there's something living here, and it evolves, and these things grow and they die, and they breed. These dogs have sex with each other. And you pick up their poop and you
First
do
they
all these
date.
kinds of your PFP doesn't do that.
First they have to date.
They have to mate?
To date.
To date. Oh, okay.
Wow,
Yes.
Kevin,
Dating,
what?
then
You
mating.
haven't dated in a while.
I don't know
even
how it works.
recognize the name.
Look, I don't know where babies come from. Okay. I'll figure it out one day. But yeah, this is something very, very new. But I do see people like they're looking at Dogami because they're presented at where they see a lot of things, which are the charts on object.com. And so they're looking at it under collections like anything else. So initially, I think for a lot of people, their way in which they qualify the asset, or they decide if they want something or not, they're gauging it like they would anything else. And since most of those things, if not all of those things, are based on virtually all just the artwork of the PFP, they're judging on that level, as opposed to the whole world of depth of values and traits that could be brought into to assess whether this is something they want to get or not. But to me, it's like, look, I think I like the artwork. I think the 3D rendering is great. I think it's fun. It's nicer than what I expected. This is really cool. I mean, I would have been satisfied with something much less. But I think these are not like hand drawn. Like these are moving things that effectively are to have some element of consciousness, as far as we can think of this limited AI at this point. But could we see even the graphic rendering evolve over time as an update, or are they fixed to where they are graphically at this point forever? I mean, these things do die ultimately, but technology evolves. I mean, would that change over time with it, or could it potentially? Yeah.
What's your point?
Well, I'm asking, like, is it something that we could see the artwork gain upgrades over time, in as much as anything else?
You want what? To see the new artwork right now?
No. So, but if you're not watching, Bilal is writing and talking at the same time. Cognitive load, it's different parts of the brain having to do, or the same part of the brain having to do two things. No, so the people who want to see maybe more advanced artwork come to it. They want to see the fleas, on the scalps, or whatever their idea.
For that, they need to, they need a dog, and they need to basically download the app and play the game with the dog they own, and they would unlock a lot of new animations, new visuals, and the petaverse, the entry to the petaverse.
So what we see on object when we're looking at that render of the of the Dogami that we want to get,
it's not optimized because it's rendered by the user interface of the website.
Got it. So you hear that, people who are constantly asking me about the artwork? There's your answer. So that's a good thing. And also the collection of the dogs, going into breeding again. and let's all be mature about this. I think people always snicker whenever the breeding comes up because it's so sensational. It's such a thing, but it's like, well, look, these are things to replicate everything a dog can do, and we are growing assets. It's not just a random way in which you can create new dogs. Like there has to be a legitimate process here that parallels the analog world. Well, what do dogs do? They breed. So they date each other, they select each other, they consent with one another for breeding, and then new dogs are born. And so, and with that, I think there are also a lot of questions with, like, if you have, say, a lower tier dog, like a bronze, because so there's bronze. People who don't know, there's bronze, silver, gold, and diamond tiers. So of the bronze tier, that's 60% of Dogami's. Of the silver tier, it's 30%. Of the gold tier, that's 8%, and of the diamond tier, that's 2%. So there's this sort of a caste like system that's among them. So if you have a bronze and a silver, for example, and they mate, what are the kids? Do they move up, or is it
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. So we are finalizing the breeding mechanism, and we should release an update of the white paper with this part. I don't want to advance too much. We've highly discussed the matter internally, whether it should be probabilistic or whether there should be a mechanic like Z-run with this predefined table which tells you what you get depending on who you breed. You'll discover it when we'll release the update.
Wow. That's keeping us in a lot of suspense. I mean, because that informs people's, like, this is, first of all, if you don't know, this has the most volume, some of the highest volume we've seen on Object, and consistently after so much time since it's been released. So people are trading this stuff left and right. And so I think people are also moving towards these long-term strategies of breeding and what that would mean, and ROI in that regard. Which is also kind of cool because it's like, you want to be able to monetize your dog, but you don't necessarily want to give it up. You don't want it to be the only way in which you can monetize things. So that's something I'm a huge fan of. And that's something that has always left me wanting more, a lot left desired from the PFP projects, because it's like, well, yeah, I can make money off this thing. Sure, there's utility to this, but it's like, I really like this. I like this one. I don't want to give it up. But a lot of people like it. That's the one I could monetize. So you have to decide between these two things. But it's like, look, my enthusiasm can translate into something that takes action, and that action could be something like breeding, and that breeding could render returns in a way that, just getting rid of my assets.
It's not just only about breeding. There is this feature which is basically NFT lending that is implemented, that we call the dog sitting feature. And basically, you can delegate to some other user your dog. If you're not playing with it, this other user will play with your dog, and you will share the revenue. There will be a revenue split between both of you. So it's also a tool for passive income. I don't want to I don't want to tease on how much you can make. I mean, to be honest, nobody knows. There is so many parameters. We have some hypotheses and some outputs, but I mean, the range is obviously big depending on the price of the token, and then the number of users and their activity. But yeah, I mean, it's different ways of taking advantage of the ecosystem we're building.
Yeah, and you don't have to give, like, those details. Obviously, I mean, like, people are dying to get these types of specifics, but obviously the stuff is still evolving. There are a lot of moving parts. I think even the teaser, I think, is enough. I mean, and even like these are more specific
the
elements.
idea is that we want the best for our community. Very ambitious with the project. We've been here for a long time. We've brought in the right partners, and we're bringing even new partners that are even more exciting to announce. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to build before we share the news. So yeah, let us build and just stay put.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we're coming up on an hour.
Yeah,
So we have a live chat going. So if people want to ask
I
things,
like to have
okay,
dinner.
we got someone asking, no announcement of the Discord about what ADM was it
I forgot to share
about
it in
the
the Discord. I'm
oh,
sorry, but
about
there
the
will
partner.
be we will be able to watch it again, right?
Yeah, of course. And we're gonna and by the
That's the
way,
point.
everybody, now we are video as well as audio. So the first 5 episodes of this from 2 years ago, that was
Oh,
all
Kevin,
audio.
I
Now we're
want to
going video.
invite you in one of my podcasts in one of the community effects
Oh, I'd
podcasts.
love to. I would
All right,
absolutely love to
let's
be there at
plan that out.
Telecon. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Bilal. Please come back. You've made the resurrection of this podcast worth it. It's going to be so many more things to come, everyone. And please participate in the Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube, and we'll make sure that the visuals and all that become worth viewing as well. So
Yeah, and just like that to tease even more, I'm very humbly kind of connected to well, very humbly what I say. I'm kind of highly connected to the Tezos ecosystem, and there are a lot of amazing people that are preparing amazing projects, and I just can't wait to see them launch. And I think I won't say 2022 will be Tezos year, because that's bullshit. But hopefully the, we will gain even more activity and variety of use cases, and big actors coming in and bringing some liquidity to foster the DeFi ecosystem. So yeah, stay put. The war of blockchain is not over.
it's just beginning. We're all basically at zero at this point. It's anybody's game. And
Yeah,
so I think when it comes to fundamentals, community, talent, projects, and just, I think, governing dynamics, whatever you want to call it, Tezos has it. Tezos has the mo. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good
thanks,
day.
Kevin, for the invitation. Was great having this time with you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye to everyone.
Likewise. Bye-bye.